es así, no es verdad y nada es tan cierto. Por ahí parece haber asomando un cuerpo, puede ser su cuerpo. Quieren ver a dónde van, tomado de la mano, y verán, los espiarán, y todo es tan humano, humano, qué espanto, humano. Quiero pararlos, quiero enseñarles, pero no.
Hello. And cheers. So I'm sitting here on a Saturday night. I'm gonna drink a couple beers. Woo! StudentWitch is going wild. Well, a couple beers is all that I can handle anymore as I age gracefully. But yeah, I'm sitting here and I thought all day about what video I wanted to record. And I have all sorts of notes for videos that I have planned, but yesterday was kind of a poopy, trauma-triggery kind of day. And so all of my plans for the video I wanted to record went out the window, and I feel the need to ramble and have something a little bit more off the cuff and more unplanned. So I'm sitting here, I'm drinking Samuel Adams. I got this when I toured the Sam Adams brewery a couple years ago. I'm drinking their black lager, and normally I don't really like dark beers, but this was included in their seasonal fall beer collection, which I bought. And I mean, just look at it. It has, I think that's a crow with like a red-orange moon on the front. I mean, it doesn't get much witchier than that. So I made, as you saw in the intro to this video, I made an offering of some of this beer to my ancestors. I'm really starting to kick that in to gear. I plan on making some biscuits, specifically for my grandparents on my dad's side, especially my grandpa, the one from Appalachia, and my ancestors from Appalachia, the ones I never met, the ones who went before me. And that's my neighbor downstairs slamming the door as he always does. But I don't know, I'm such a shameful southerner. I have never made biscuits from scratch. I've made biscuits from Bisquick. I grew up doing that. I know my grandma knew how to make biscuits from scratch, but as she got older she just switched to Bisquick, and that was easier for her, and that was the job I was given for Sunday dinner, was to make the biscuits since I was 6 or 7 years old. So I made biscuits that way. So I just got back from the grocery store and I just bought those like pop can biscuits. So I'm gonna throw those in the oven maybe tomorrow morning or later this week before they go bad, and I'm going to offer them, 1 or 2 of them, to my ancestors on my ancestor altar, which is right up there, that you saw earlier. And I'm going to slather it with butter and some good Appalachian honey. Honey that was made by bees that were raised by my great uncle Junior. He's the only one of my grandfather's siblings that is still alive. He was the youngest one of 14 kids. And my grandpa passed away a couple years ago, so I hoard that honey because it's from my great uncle Junior in Breathitt County, Kentucky. You know. So yes. So here I am rambling already, and I haven't even like really properly introduced this video. These are my Samhain thoughts. These are the things that have been floating around in my head since Mabon, from Mabon to Samhain. I've been getting a little bit more interested in the Wheel of the Year concept, especially since I live in Massachusetts. And Massachusetts, if you look at it, I can never remember which is latitude and which is longitude. I think this one is latitude, right? It's around the same latitude as, you know, England and the British Isles, where this revisionist Wheel of the Year was thought of and came about in, I guess. So Massachusetts, I would guess, has very similar weather to England. I've been to England and Ireland, and I would say it's pretty comparable, especially the brutal late winter in March. I was in Ireland in 2008 while I was studying abroad in Spain, and during Semana Santa, or Holy Week, that's like their spring break there. And so a friend and I decided to go to Ireland because we got really cheap Ryanair tickets. And if anybody's in Europe or anybody's traveled very cheaply in Europe, you know what Ryanair is. Right, but I got really cheap tickets to Ireland, and I didn't even realize it was St. Patrick's Day week. That was the week we went to Ireland. Because I was looking at hostels in Dublin, and I just couldn't find anything. I was like, why are all the hostels filled? And then I realized, oh, it's the week of St. Patrick's Day. So my friend and I started in Galway on the other side of the island and kind of like made our way back to Dublin. But yeah, we were there in March around the time of the spring equinox, and it was cold and wet and brutal, but it was so fucking beautiful. So anyway, I'm in a similar climate, and so the Wheel of the Year kind of makes sense to me. And ever since I got my DNA test done over the summer, I think, I can't remember, but a few months ago, I realized that I'm basically a quarter Irish. Like between the British Isles and Ireland, that's 65% of my genetic makeup. The rest, there's little bits of Scandinavian here, there, a little bit like Finnish or Western Russian here, a little bit of the Iberian Peninsula, a little bit of European Jew, around 14 or 16% according to Ancestry.com and their methods, but 14 to 16% of me is Western Europe, so they didn't really specify if it's Germany, France, Austria. But anyway, so 65% of me is Britain, Scotland, and Ireland. Ireland, I think, is 24 or 25% of me. So yeah, the Wheel of the Year being based on that more kind of Celtic viewpoint of the seasons has been creeping back into my interests in my mind. And so I've been drawing, just from Mabon to now, I've been drawing a tarot card, and I try to focus on that tarot card for that 6-week period between the 8 spokes in the wheel, right? From Mabon to Samhain is the period that we're in now in the Northern Hemisphere. And the card that I drew was it the Horned God? It's the Emperor. I can't remember how they labeled it, but it's the Emperor in the Green Witch Tarot, which is one of my favorite decks. It's so just sweet. It's still powerful, but it has a sweet, whimsical charm to it, which balances out really well with most of my other decks, which are very heavy duty and intense. So yeah, the Horned God, the Emperor. The Emperor for me is just all about sitting in your power. And so that's been what I've been focusing on during this season as we approach the final harvest festival before the winter solstice and my 30th birthday. Yes, I turned 30 on the winter solstice this year. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm excited to be 30. I'm ready. My 20s were adventurous and interesting, but I have some really bad memories and very bad experiences that happened in my 20s, and I'm ready to enter into a new decade. And so, yes, the Emperor, sitting in my power, and just the idea of sitting in my power and owning my power, the first thing that comes to mind is this Beyonce song. It's not on Formation. It's on an older album. I think an album that maybe came out in 2014 or 2015. It's the one with the black cover and it just says Beyonce on the front. And I can't remember the name of the song. I think the song is called Rocket. And it's a love song, a very erotic love song and lyrics. And she opens up the song with this lyric. She says something like, "Let me sit this ass on ya." And so I'm like, let me sit my ass in my throne of power. You know. Sorry for my terrible singing. I just butchered Beyonce. Beyonce, goddess, forgive me. But yeah, it's like, let me sit my ass down right here and let me own my fucking power. And so that has been really the theme of this spoke or chunk of the Wheel of the Year for me, of this autumn season. And I think a couple weeks ago or last week, Joey Morris and Chris Ashburn, in one of their conversations, they recently talked about soul retrieval. And I love their live chats, by the way. I always listen to them. I can't really always make them when they're being recorded live, but I always go back and watch them. And so this idea of soul retrieval and its kind of connection with shadow work kind of sparked a couple of thoughts in my brain. And I wasn't familiar at all with the concept of soul retrieval before watching that, but looking back retroactively to the really tough time that I went through last semester, in the spring semester, tough in the sense of, the long distance with my husband, but also financial difficulties and getting behind in my PhD program, and just lots of anger. And also my husband's visa issues. We were scared that he wouldn't get a job and he wouldn't be able to legally stay in the US past May. Very real shit was going down, but also amidst all of that very real shit, after talking to a therapist a few times, I came to realize or feel and understand. When you understand something so deeply you can't even form words about it, I came to feel and understand generations of trauma that have impacted my family. Poverty, sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental health issues. And when I say generations, I'm not saying like this kind of shit happened in my great-great-grandparents' generation. I'm saying this shit happened to my parents and impacted how they raised us and how they survived. And I'm sure it goes way back to my great-great and great-great-great-grandparents. And I feel like last semester I went to some pretty dark places, and in those dark places I felt like I was losing myself, but now that I've come out the other side, I can see that I've actually retrieved that idea of soul retrieval, right? I've retrieved parts of myself, the parts that were connected to those generations of trauma. And even before I was aware of this idea of soul retrieval, and before watching this video, months ago, in the deepest, darkest depths of the shit I was swimming through, this thought came to me: I heal myself, I heal my ancestors, I heal my children, right? Because the trauma that affects our ancestors, physically, trauma, extreme trauma like starvation and extreme physical abuse and things, it can shape and change your DNA. That's proven, that's science, right? But I personally feel, and this is just how I've been able to make sense of this, it also impacts your soul if we have some type of soul, some part of us that is unique, but also infinite, I guess. And I feel like I finally started to understand the burden I was carrying, because it wasn't just my own issues with mental illness, with depression and anxiety, which I've dealt with ever since I can remember, since I was a toddler, basically, to my earliest memories. But it's also the burden I'm carrying in my bloodline. In my more immediate ancestors, like my grandparents. All of my grandparents have passed on, by the way. None of them are alive anymore. But also the traumas that they went through, and probably their parents went through, and their grandparents, and their great-grandparents, and their great-great-grandparents, I carry that. We all carry that, I believe, anyway. And so when we heal ourselves, when we start to retrieve these parts of our souls, or when we start going through shadow work, or however you want to put it, I believe, and this brings me comfort and peace, but I believe that we're also healing our ancestors, if we choose to. I understand that sometimes you have ancestors who did some pretty evil shit and you just don't want to go there, and that's legit. I have a grandfather who sexually abused his children. So one of my parents was sexually abused by my grandfather, and that parent has gone through hell and back again to find peace because of that trauma that they went through and their own issues with mental health. I personally don't work with that grandfather. I communicated with him once after he passed. Actually, it was the first Samhain, my first Samhain ritual, for like proper Samhain ritual. My first year as a witch. Samhain evening, I opened the circle. I opened for communication, and I played bluegrass music, because it was also the first Samhain that I had after my Kentucky grandpa had passed away. And he also, as a grandfather, he was very loving and funny and quirky, always told dirty jokes, had this beautiful old school Appalachian accent. But as a younger man, as a father, and as a husband, he was incredibly physically abusive and neglected his family. Anyway, complicated shit. So that first Samhain, I was a year into being, or owning the fact that I was a witch. I played bluegrass music to celebrate my grandpa's life, but I was also very real with him and my other grandfather, who had died back in 2009, I believe. And so at the end of the ritual was actually the next morning on November 1st, and I lit 2 candles. And I asked them, do you regret what you did in life? Have you learned your lesson, basically? And so I left the candles in the circle. I had set everything up on the floor, and I went up to take a shower because it was the morning. And when I got out of the shower, both the candles were out. And I took that as a sign that that was their answer to my question. Like, yes, we regret what we did in life. We understand the pain that we perpetuated. So, where was I going with this? So, sitting in my seat of power in the dark places I went last semester and confronting these generations of trauma, I did some intense shit. Intense. I would call it soul retrieval, even though I didn't realize that's what it was at the time. And I went to those places and I came back the other side. I feel victorious. That doesn't mean all the problems magically went away, but every day I feel stronger than I did the day before, right? Every day I'm stronger than I was before. And as I healed myself, I felt like I was cleaning my bloodline out. Like I was rinsing that shit off so that I can do whatever I can to not pass that on to future generations, right? There's a sense of responsibility to this. If I don't make sure I take care of my shit, I could inadvertently pass that shit on to my kids if I decide to have kids, first of all. There are days I have my doubts, but I'm giving myself until I'm 33 to like really decide to get pregnant or not. So I have a few more years to decide. But when I say potentially pass this shit on to my kids, I'm not talking about energy or anything. I'm saying literally, if I don't make sure to put in the work for shadow work and to understand myself and to not be like hyper vigilant. I'm not saying that I'm like constantly doing shadow work or anything, but I need to be real with myself and realize when I might be falling into or falling back into a depression, and what impact does that have on the people around me. How would that impact my relationship with my husband, and how would that in turn impact how we raise our kids or our daily exchanges with our kids, when that day comes. Like there's very, very real down-to-earth shit going on, but also possibly energetic shit if you're into that kind of thing too. So I know Samhain and the dark half of the year is when everybody starts talking about shadow work. Everybody starts focusing on shadow work. And I also know that it's been made clear by several people that there is no specific time for shadow work. Sometimes you can't schedule shadow work. Sometimes you need to do it just to get through the day, right? Sometimes shit comes up, like on Friday when I had a trauma-triggered kind of day, and I'm not going to go into it, but major traumas were triggered on Friday, yesterday. So I pulled out the cards. I did a reading with the Oracle of Echoes, and the message I got was just exactly what I needed to see and hear and reflect upon. I used my trauma trigger tarot spread, which I made a video about in the spring, I think, so I'll include that in the description below. It's the second time that I've used this tarot spread, and it's really helpful. So if you do have triggers, I would suggest checking it out. I'm giving that as a resource for you freely. So it really helped me yesterday and today still. So yes, this is the season of shadow work, sure. But for me, I feel like personally I need to take a break from that because the spring semester was hell. I went to hell and back again. And now I feel like, and this goes back to this idea of sitting in my power, I just need to sit. I need to sit my ass in my throne and reap the harvest. I need to reap the rewards of all the hard work I did. I need to take a break from shadow work and from this intense shit. and just focus on my power and focus on just celebrating the accomplishment that I came out the other side, and I came out stronger. I came out victorious. Did I come out unharmed? Absolutely not. These things don't go away magically overnight, right? But I want to celebrate my accomplishment or accomplishments and really take that metaphor of bringing in the harvest and celebrating the harvest, since Samhain is a harvest festival. I really want to take that to heart. So that is my plan for Samhain, actually. I will do some, communication or give some offerings to my ancestors and leave the door open if they want to come in and say hi. They usually do through my dreams. That I get a lot of messages and stuff in my dreams. I might have to make a video about that. But yeah, I just want to make an offering with my ancestors. I will probably sometime next week or in the days leading up to Samhain, to the 31st. I do want to develop a tarot card spread, just a simple 3-card spread, for communicating with my ancestors or with whatever might be, keeping an eye out for me and guiding me. And just celebrate me and sit my ass down in my throne and enjoy that and feel the power that I've developed within me. It's been incredible. It's been a bumpy road. Like yesterday's trigger brought out a lot of shit. It wasn't just the memory of the event, but it brought out insecurities, and I started beating myself up and just all sorts of insecurities. And the tarot spread, or the trauma spread that I did yesterday, helped me to kind of catch myself in the act and rein it back in, calm down, let the thoughts and feelings come, but also let them go, because one of the cards, and this is one of my favorite cards in the deck, is let go. I mean, look at that, it just dissolves into the ocean, to the greater all. Like, let it go to the universe. Just let it go, right? This is the Oracle of Echoes by Anna Turian, by the way. It's been a while since I've whipped out this Oracle deck, but the artwork and the images are kind of intense for me, and so I reserve it for more intense moments like this trauma trigger spread. But yeah, so that's my Samhain plans. Also, I'm going to Salem tomorrow. This is my bottle opener. It's a refrigerator magnet. I've been to Salem before because I live in Massachusetts. I live in the greater Boston area. So when my friend came to visit me a couple years ago, we went to Salem. But I want to go by myself because I'm still in the witchy closet with my friend. And even though we kind of, for funsies, walked around and checked out the shops and got a tarot card reading and stuff, I couldn't really be like full-blown witch in front of her. So I'm going by myself. I'm just, healing myself and treating myself in light of that trigger that happened yesterday. And I'm going shopping. There is a shop, and y'all are gonna laugh at me for this. There is a shop, a touristy souvenir kind of shop in Salem called Why Not's Wands. And they make, like, it's a Harry Potter-esque looking shop, and they make wooden wands. And I know it's supposed to be a cheap souvenir. Well, not actually cheap. They're like 25 or 30 bucks. But a souvenir for kids and people who are into Harry Potter and stuff. But I remember walking through it the last time I was there, and I was like, I need a wand. And it needs to be elder. Like, the elder tree is my tree. It's my birth tree according to the Celtic, is it Ogham? I don't really know. I'm sorry, people who are into like Celtic witchcraft and stuff, but I don't know much about the calendar of trees, whatever the fuck it's called, but I know that my tree is the elder tree, and every description I've ever read about it just like taps right into that high priestess vibe that is just me. If you know, the high priestess in the tarot, that's my archetype. One of many, but that's what I tap into a lot. So yes, I'm gonna buy myself an elder wand. And there's also some stores that sell used books and tarot decks and oracle decks, because I want to buy some used decks. I've really started, you know, increasing the size of my tarot and oracle deck collection. Tomorrow in the mail, I'm supposed to get the Centennial Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which I'm super excited about. I've had my eye on that thing for a while, and after yesterday's trigger, I decided to go on Amazon and treat myself. So I got the Centennial Waite-Smith deck, and I got Moonology, that book. I can't remember the author right now, but I'm excited about that. And I got Astrology for Yourself, which is another book that Arwen actually recommended for beginners astrology, like getting the handle on what exactly your birth chart is all about. Because I've read some stuff online, and I have a PDF of my birth chart that but I don't exactly know how to read it, right, in detail. So I'm really excited about that. So Lord knows I don't need any more books, but more tarot and oracle decks, fuck yeah. And if I can find a cheap one, a used one tomorrow, that would be great. So yes, a cheesy wand, because I fucking want it, an elder wand, and a used deck or two. That's my goal tomorrow in Salem. And to drink pumpkin beer and just drink it in. I'm about to move back to Georgia in the spring semester, and I don't know if I'm ever going to live this close to Salem or in this region again. So I really want to take advantage of that. So I'm going to upload this video, and tomorrow I'm going to Salem, and then probably when I get back to Salem I'll record a little witchy haul for you guys. And yeah, those are my thoughts and my plans on Samhain. And cheers. Oh, thanks for listening to my ramble. Until next time, many blessings. Bye.